Part 64. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 641. Wu Yu was forced to make a decision, but it was indeed the most suitable choice for him at the moment. He is too weak, but he carries a heavy treasure and goes to the Yanhuang ancient territory with no one to protect him. In fact, he is looking for death. Moreover, although it was said that Emperor Yu had sent people out to tell the story about the heaven-swallowing demon ancestor, Wu Yu didn't know how to implement it. Now that he has the strength to surpass the Emperor and the others, at least he can be of great help if he goes back. The most important thing is that he is no longer the same person as he was when he first entered the Taku Immortal Road. Now, he has become famous here and is fully capable of crossing the sea and walking in the entire world of Yanfu. Therefore, at this moment, the way forward in his mind is very clear. At this time, everyone was looking at his spiritual weapon with ardent eyes. Sometimes the weapon in his hand was the same as his own woman. Being looked at by others greedily made them feel angry and disgusted. And at this time Jun Shengsheng also said, "This spiritual Taoist weapon looks good at first glance, but I don't know how powerful it is. Wu Yu, since you have taken it out, why don't you let me try the power of this spiritual Taoist weapon?" In fact, they could probably tell that Wu Yu seemed to have sacrificed and refined this spiritual Taoist artifact. Generally speaking, people in the Yuan Shen transformation realm have the ability to refine spiritual Taoist artifacts. Although Wu Yu was in the Zifu-Kanghai realm, his combat power was very high. Strong, they also had the guts to regard Wu Yu as the same level. However, in fact, they also estimated that Wu Yu's control of this spiritual weapon was not comprehensive enough. Their eyes were very vicious, and they could tell at a glance that Wu Yu did not have the strength to fully master this spiritual weapon. At this time, it is most convenient for this spiritual weapon to change its owner. Therefore, Jun Shengsheng had an idea. He thought that during the battle, he would find a way to snatch this spiritual weapon. As long as he restrained himself, the little prince would naturally take action quickly and force Wu Yu out of the Taku Immortal Road. In this way, the spiritual weapon naturally fell into their hands. As for what happened after Wu Yu left, they didn't bother to care. Moreover, the threat from Princess Yuqing and the others is only a threat to Dongsheng Shenzhou and has nothing to do with them at all. The motive is obvious and sinister. Everyone present, including Wu Yu, knew what Jun Shengsheng was going to do. But in fact, it was hard for Wu Yu to refuse. After all, his statement was that he just wanted to witness the power of this spiritual weapon. "Wu Yu, come on, let's see you defeat invincible opponents in the mausoleum. We are also very curious about how powerful you are with this precious spiritual weapon." Even the little prince clapped and booed. "I think Jun Shengsheng is no match for you. After all, you have defeated Zhang Kaijun, and now you have a spiritual weapon in your hand. What I'm saying is that the young master's strength is relatively even, and he is not as hot as Wu Yu. With the strength to defeat Zhang Kaijun, plus the spiritual weapon, he will definitely be able to crush him. Young master is too bold. Wu Yu will definitely defeat him easily, haha." Everyone said that Jun Shengxian was not good enough and tempted Wu Yu to fight with him, and the fight was fair and above board. This really made Wu Yu look like a fool. In fact, the young prince still focused on applying pressure. He knew that Wu Yu should know their purpose and would not agree. What he wanted was that even if Wu Yu didn't agree this time, he would agree next time, or he would agree one time. Although the spiritual weapon was right in front of him, he did not dare to take action casually, for fear that Wu Yu would accidentally take the spiritual weapon away and hide it after returning to Shenzhou. Therefore, you still have to be completely sure. As long as they fight each other, Wu Yu will have flaws. Wu Yu, we are all one of our own. Don't be polite to Jun Sheng. There is no need to give him face. Let him see how powerful the spiritual weapon is." The little prince stood beside Wu Yu and advised him again and again. Sometimes, Dangerous words can also be a killing weapon. Wu Yu can only refuse a few times at most. By then, the two parties will probably break up and become angry. The young prince didn't believe it, and he couldn't do anything to Wu Yu. However, he did not expect that without him having to say anything, Wu Yu actually agreed directly and readily. Actually, I haven't used it since I got it. I don't know the power of this spiritual weapon for the time being. If there is any, if I have offended you, I hope that for the sake of the little prince, I will not hold a grudge. Obviously, the speed of his agreement shocked everyone, and they all thought depressedly, did I overestimate this Wu Yu? In fact, he is just a fool who just got lucky. Jun Shengsheng said quickly, it doesn't matter, we all just want to see the power of the spiritual weapon. We are all our own people, of course we don't hold grudges. When the opportunity came, the little prince felt a little incredible. With a look in his eyes, everyone immediately understood and moved the battlefield out of the way, leaving room for Wu Yu and Jun to fight. The opponent is at the 4th level of Yuan Shen transformation realm. Although he is young, he is definitely better than the Emperor Shui, and has more tricks than the Emperor Shui, Tianxia Sword Immortal and others. Wu Yu has now unknowingly surpassed the 7 Immortals of Shushan and surpassed many powerful men in Dongsheng Shenzhou. Now it is estimated that even Holy Lord Taixu can barely fight. Of course, his realm is very low, so some additional means must be used immediately. Among the 3 great magical powers, the extra-legal clone lacks the Dao Yuan Shen Dan, the piercing sun with blazing eyes, but lacks the sun in the sky, so he can only use the magic of heaven and earth first. For a moment, in the eyes of everyone in amazement, Wu Yu directly transformed into a giant, 3 feet tall. The little prince and others were not as tall as his calves. At this time, Wu Yu was like a demon transforming into its true form. What kind of magical power is this, so mysterious? The little prince frowned slightly, and he suddenly realized that maybe Wu Yu was not what he imagined, born in a poor mountain and bad water, an ugly, short and unruly person with no capital. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. While he was thinking, Wu Yu also performed the immortal ape transformation on that basis, and now turned into a golden ape, mighty and domineering. If it were not for the lack of armor, it would be very similar to the Monkey King. Even the one long stick became very huge at this time, like a pillar, held in Wu Yu's hand. For a moment, the tens of thousands of dragon reliefs turned directly into golden dragon shadows, tumbling around the stick, and the dragon roar shook the sky. Such a huge momentum directly alarmed the people walking up the mountain, such as Princess Yuqian and others, who immediately turned back and looked at it, and they knew what happened in their hearts. Wu Yu, this idiot. They were so concerned about the palace on the mountain that they had to turn back and rush over. They didn't expect Wu Yu to fall into the trap of the little prince so quickly. On this side, facing Wu Yu who had strange means, Jun Yan's hung seemed normal, surging, strong, and profound. He was full of vast purple palace energy, and his soul power was also very strong. At this time, the double power gathered. Although he didn't have a physical body like Wu Yu, he still suppressed Wu Yu far in terms of magic power and momentum. Linked Yen Soul Pillar. He flipped his hand and a long stick appeared. It was a dark blue long stick with cloud-like reliefs on it. The magic array was dense and often changed into the face of an immortal. Someone could be heard chanting in the distance, which was indeed a thrilling feeling. Such a Taoist weapon has at least 70,000 or 80,000 magic arrays, which is much better than Wu Yu's Han-Hai Tyrannosaurus pillar, but it is still a little worse than the one long stick. Wu Yu did not expect that the other party was as good at using this type of Taoist weapon as himself. No wonder Jun Yan's Hung paid attention to the one long stick on the grassland. Xianji Hong Tian Dao Fa. Just as the Taoist weapon was sacrificed, Jun Yan's Hung saw Princess Yu Xing and others returning in the distance, and knew that time was running out. Without saying a word, he launched an attack directly. Boom! Jun Yanzhen's magical powers blessed his whole body, and he seemed to have defensive armor Taoist weapons on his body. His whole body was wrapped tightly, with only his face exposed. At this time, he rushed over like a golden war god. The way he waved the linked Yen Soul pillar made Wu Yu see himself a little. Indeed, it was a rough, direct, pure duel of power and magic power. Boom boom boom. A stick swept across, whether it was attacking the flesh or the soul, all gathered on the linked Yen Soul pillar. For a moment, the light shone, the space shook, and the eyes of all time were focused on this stick. Jun Yanzhen's target was the one long stick. He seemed to be smashing towards Wu Yu, but in fact, he knew that Wu Yu would definitely use the one long stick to block it. He just wanted to use his absolute magical power to pull the one long stick out, and the little prince was behind him. As long as the one long stick flew out, it would fall into the hands of the little prince in an instant. At that time, the little prince grabbed the one long stick and blocked it. He killed Wu Yu. It didn't matter whether Wu Yu was killed or escaped, anyway, the one long stick was in his hands. The idea was perfect. The little prince was also impatient. And Princess Yuyan, 9-star Snow Chi, etc., didn't have enough time to come now. Everything happened in an instant. At the moment when Jun Yanzheng attacked violently, Wu Yu roared and moved forward suddenly. His body was heavy, and the earth trembled as he walked. Violence. The final power made his arms even thicker, and the most terrifying power was concentrated on the one long stick. For a moment, thousands of dragons roared, and the world trembled. At this moment, Wu Yu covered Jun Yanzheng. The two sides suddenly slammed together with their sticks. Bang! What people saw with their own eyes seemed to be different from what they expected. Even the little prince was stunned, because what he saw was not the 10,000 dragon sticks flying towards him, but Jun Yanzhen's linked Yen Soul pillar, which suddenly flew out and rushed to the lightning group in the sky. It was suddenly entangled by lightning and stayed in the lightning for a while. Jun Yanzheng cried out in pain, and his arms seemed to be useless. He himself flew out in Wu Yu's huge power. The speed was quite terrifying. For a while, no one could stop him. Jun Yanzheng directly hit the purple lightning network outside. Crackling. The purple lightning was unexpectedly terrifying. It directly wrapped around him. After a few crackling explosions, everyone saw that the Taoist armor on his body actually exploded. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 642. Boom boom boom. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Violent purple lightning struck Jun Xian's body. At this time, Jun Shengsheng was covered in blood, looking at everyone with despair on his face, and could only scream in pain and screams. However, the disaster did not last long. For a while, Jun Shengsheng was directly engulfed by the dense lightning and turned into a purple lightning ball. Then the countless lightnings on the lightning ball suddenly dissipated and exploded. Jun Shengsheng among them, also disappeared directly. I don't know if he used the ancient immortal talisman to go back, or if he is already dead. At this time, even the Taoist weapon in the sky, the linked Yen Soul suppressing pillar, exploded to pieces at this moment, and even the Taoist weapon was blown to pieces by the purple thunder. Everyone watched the scene quietly, and their hearts were filled with shock. Princess Yuking and others who were about to come back quickly stopped at this time. In fact, even Wu Yu was frightened by the power of this purple thunder. Everyone knows the horror of many things in the Teiku Immortal Road, such as the magic circle that protects the spiritual weapon. As long as it touches it, it will kill you instantly. So they didn't dare to get close to this purple thunder, but they didn't expect that this purple thunder would reach the point where they might die if they touched it. Jun Shengsheng, did you escape or die? Many people looked at each other and asked in shock. In fact, Wu Yu's fiery eyes had already seen clearly. The moment Jun Sheng's body was surrounded by the purple thunder, he was paralyzed and unable to move. A large amount of crazy lightning poured into the vast sea of Zi mansion, tearing apart everything in it. Damn it, he failed to use the ancient immortal talisman at the first time. Then, it was too late. He could only be torn apart by countless lightnings at the moment when his whole body was paralyzed, trembling, and unable to move. Therefore, Jun Sheng died. Maybe no one could see it clearly except Wu Yu. After all, he was the only one with piercing eyes. However, even if they were forced to leave, they would probably be severely injured after leaving. Therefore, everyone was frightened by the lightning and thunder around them, even Princess Yuking and others, and quickly stayed away. Haha, let me tell you, how could Wu Yu fall into the trap so quickly? He has many tricks. In this ancient immortal road, there is no force behind him. The little prince wants to take away his things, but there is no such thing. Easy, Princess Yuking's dark green eyes stared at Wu Yu with a strange light. Wu Yu now put away the 10,000 dragon stick and returned to his ordinary self. Many people were watching him secretly. There was too much disbelief hidden in his eyes. Perhaps more people clearly realized that they underestimated Wu Yu. Remember, when he first came to Taku Immortal Road, he seemed to be unable to defeat the Yuan Shen transformation realm. Yes. In just a few months, he not only obtained the important treasure, but also defeated the 4th level of Yuan Shen's form. This is a miracle that is impossible. I bet that he also obtained the treasure in the Taku Immortal Road. Other babies. This Wu Yu, we definitely underestimated him. Didn't expect him to be so terrifying. No way. I guess this kind of strength can't be displayed often. Even if he can only perform it a few times, it's still amazing. You know, his realm seems to be the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. Yes, in history, no one from the Kanghai realm of Zifu has such strength. No matter how strong his body is. He definitely has a huge secret. There is a heavy treasure. There was a lot of discussion about Wu Yu for a while. People still wanted to get the valuable treasure in his hand, but in their eyes, Wu Yu no longer seemed to be a rogue man in the mountains who could be killed at will. Wu Yu faced the little prince at this time and said, "Little prince, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that this spiritual weapon was so powerful, let alone that the lightning network was so powerful. I accidentally caused Jun Sheng to leave the Taku Immortal Lu, I'm so sorry." He estimated that others could not see clearly, so he directly said that Jun Xiangxin had escaped. In fact, Jun Xiangxin was dead. Of course, Wu Yu really didn't expect that his original purpose was just to drive away his opponent. He didn't expect that the lightning would be so terrifying. This was an accidental killing. Everyone could see clearly that Wu Yu could not be blamed for this. The little prince was very depressed, but he still waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter. After you are derived, your family will treat you. His father is also the head of the house after all, so you don't have to worry about it." However, the power of this spiritual weapon is really terrifying. It can make your Zifu Kanghai realm show such lethality. Speaking of the latter, he actually became even more jealous. In fact, many people suspect that Jun Shengxian is dead, but they are not sure. Listening to these two people, those who are unsure will naturally think that they are overthinking. It doesn't really matter if you just leave. In the end, everyone has to leave here. It seemed like it was over. Princess Yuking glanced at Wu Yu again and said to the people around her, "It's over, let's go." She was relieved, at least she knew that the little prince could not get the spiritual weapon. Moreover, she knew that she underestimated Wu Yu. After going out, he did not have much power, but here, he was the most magical person. Maybe his strength is not the best now, but now everyone knows that he is not easy to mess with, and they also know that he has a big secret. There is nothing Wu Yu can do about this. He cannot hold back and pretend that he only has the strength of the Kanghai realm of Zifu. Holding back may make him safer, but it will destroy his Taoist heart. His Tao is to face it bravely and move forward bravely. Is the unyielding way. If there is a battle, fight it. If there are hardships, be brave and overcome them. Instead of being timid, hiding and being a human being. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The indestructible body of Vajra, the great celestial arts, and the heaven-defying inheritance passed down by the Immortals cannot be concealed at all. His purpose is to have the ability to be unkillable by others before people know about it. At this time, the little prince could only give up temporarily, and everyone else went to the mountain peak. In fact, he also valued the things on the mountain peak. When I take you back to the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, the things will still be mine. Let's see, the little prince thought to himself. Now, he wants to build a good relationship with Wu Yu and make Wu Yu trust him and go to the Yanhuang ancient kingdom with him. This is the ancient immortal talisman of the Yanhuang ancient kingdom. If you crush it, you can go to the Yanhuang ancient territory. There is no need for your talent to stay in Dongsheng divine continent. You should serve our ancient country, he quickly told Wu Yu's most recent. Whatever you want is delivered to Wu Yu's hands. The ancient immortal talisman of the Yanhuang ancient country. I don't know which subordinate he got it from. Anyway, he should have arranged it. Maybe he also snatched someone else's ancient immortal talisman. Anyway, he didn't ask Wu Yu for the ancient immortal talisman of Dongsheng Shenzhou. Obviously, even if he wanted it, Wu Yu wouldn't give it to him. Wu Yu temporarily collected the ancient immortal talisman and put it on his body. It was also an option. But judging from the current situation, if he went to the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, the young prince would be able to catch the turtle in the jar. Thank you, little prince. Now, everyone is carefully following the passage up the mountain. No one dares to make any big moves, let alone touch the lightning and thunder that exists around them. When they climbed to the top of the mountain, the passage was gone, but the lightning network everywhere still existed. If they wanted to climb to the palaces on the top of the mountain, they had to be careful first and avoid the purple lightning. As for flying to the top of the mountain, there is no chance, because there are definitely more lightning and thunder in the sky than on the ground, and the entire mountain peak is directly covered by the lightning network. No one can fly to the top of the mountain from the sky, and it is even more impossible for them to leave this place. Mountain peak. When they reached the foot of the mountain and started to climb up, everyone was startled and dispersed, each avoiding the purple lightning and heading towards the top of the mountain. The young prince kept Wu Yu by his side. The Yanhuang ancient kingdom's team was too big, and they gradually dispersed as they traveled far. After all, the young prince and Wu Yu were both relatively fast movers. This mountain peak is as big as Qingtianshu mountain, with rugged rocks and lightning raging overhead. You can only lower your head and move forward. However, lightning suddenly shoots out from the surrounding rocks and the land under your feet, making it difficult to prevent it. Wu Yu was hit by the purple lightning once, and it was really scary. One of his legs was paralyzed. Considering his physical condition, it took him a long time to recover. Others who were attacked had to kneel on the ground and scream for a long time before they could get up shivering. This mountain peak is so similar to Qingtianshu mountain. The higher Wu Yu stood, looking up and down, the more similarities he found. At least there shouldn't be much difference in height. The only people with him now are the little prince, and the others are basically in the soul transformation realm. Hurry up, speed up. There must be treasures in the palace on the top of the mountain. Don't let others get there first, the little prince muttered. Wu Yu raised his head and saw that he could see more clearly than others. The little prince was right, it was like heaven. Wu Yu could even vaguely smell a fragrance. It was only for the top-notch fairy spirits. The fragrance. Did you smell it? This fragrance is so strong, there must be at least dozens of fairies with 7 spiritual lines. I see, there's more. There must be immortal spirits. However, everyone should be more careful. The Teku Immortal Road is like this. All treasures are accompanied by fatal dangers. Check the location of the Teku Immortal Talisman. Don't run away without finding the Teku Immortal Talisman. Then but you will die here, the young prince ordered. Wu Yu, are the ancient immortal talismans ready? The young prince asked. Wu Yu patted his chest, indicating that he was here. Very well, stay safe. The little prince smiled. Everyone quickly went up. At this time, I heard an earth-shattering scream coming from the distance to the left. The scream stopped abruptly as soon as it started. However, because it was so miserable, everyone suddenly turned pale. 3 chapters completed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 643. This mountain, which is very similar to Qingtian Shushan, is completely enclosed by a purple lightning network. Standing on the mountainside, looking up, basically the whole sky is full of whistling electric snakes. The purple electric snakes twisted and exploded, occasionally rushing down and exploding on the mountain peak. On the land of the mountain peak, electric snakes also surged and swept everywhere. Those who went up must use their own means to protect themselves, so as not to be hit by the lightning and thunder that were roaming everywhere. Everyone, even the top Princess Yukin and others, had to be cautious when climbing this mountain. Wu Yu was no exception. There were less than 200 people left, climbing up quietly and quickly from different directions. The wind and thunder roared all around, which was thrilling. Wu Yu followed behind the little prince and others, and did not encounter any danger for the time being. The speed at which the little prince and others went up was actually fast enough, but Wu Yu still felt it was too slow. At this time, many screams were heard, some close and some far away. These people are so stupid. Isn't it just that there are more lightning? Why are they all shouting like they're dying? The little prince frowned and said depressedly. He was also hit by the lightning. He was protected by the top Taoist weapon, so he could only feel the stinging pain. He shivered all over and almost passed out, but it didn't hurt so much. Little prince, do you think there might be other dangers? A young man next to him said cautiously. The little prince said, it's possible. Everyone be careful. In addition to the damn lightning and thunder running around, there may be other dangers. This place is probably the most evil. Be careful. At the end, he glanced at the last Wu Yu. There was no one else around. Do you want to try to snatch it? After thinking about it, he gave up. He was afraid that Wu Yu would return to his Dongsheng Shenzhou before he succeeded. Judging from the amazing means Wu Yu showed in his previous confrontation with Junyan's Hung, it was difficult for the little prince to crush him. There are many mysteries about this man. I will take him to my father and let him dig out the secrets. Maybe he can get a treasure. By then, my status in my father's eyes will definitely be greatly improved, surpassing my brother's. Thinking of this, the little prince divided part of his mind to prevent Wu Yu from escaping quietly and leaving the team. Several people moved quickly, dodging left and right, crossing mountains and ridges, turning into afterimages, and rushing towards the top of the mountain. Wu Yu was very cautious. Suddenly, he saw a snake-shaped lightning fall from the lightning network in the sky and rush towards a person next to the little prince. The speed was very fierce. He didn't even have time to remind him, and the lightning hit the man's back directly. Swoosh! Unexpectedly, this purple snake-shaped lightning actually drilled directly into his body. Wu Yu always felt that this lightning seemed to be slightly different from the lightning that flowed before. This was intuition. At this moment, the man's body suddenly fell to the ground and fell to the ground. This process was accompanied by his heart-wrenching screams. It was as if the lightning that had just rushed into his body was spinning like a knife in his body. Swish, blood and flesh flew everywhere. The man's screams only lasted for a moment, and when he fell to the ground, the screams stopped abruptly. Wu Yu always felt that ordinary lightning and thunder could not have such an effect. The next moment, countless lightning suddenly burst out from this man's body from the inside out, and dense purple directly covered his body. Purple lightning squeezed out of his body, and there were thousands of them. Wu Yu clearly saw at this time that this was not lightning at all, but snakes that looked like lightning. They bit out of the man's body and rushed out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After staring at Wu Yu as if warning, these snakes squeezed out of their bodies returned to the lightning network in the sky. They were too similar to the lightning that was roaming around. Wu Yu also used his fiery eyes to see the difference in such a short moment. Moreover, the most important thing is that only one electric snake entered his body, but thousands of them came out, as if the lightning directly used the man's body to give birth to thousands of small snakes. All this happened in the blink of an eye. This time it was close at hand, and screams from other places were heard. When everyone reacted, with the little prince in the lead, they hurried to help the man up, only to find that when they touched the man's body, the body had become charred and pitch black. It was already a corpse. Dead. Wu Yu was also shocked. He knew very well that when attacked by the electric snake, even if there was still a little consciousness, even if there was still a little time to react, even if after being hit, they could still use even a little bit of purple mansion energy, they could leave here, instead of being killed instantly here and turned directly into charcoal. In other words, when the electric snake entered the body, it was actually declared dead. If it was hit, even if it could persist in crushing and activating the ancient fairy talisman in that critical moment, after leaving, it was estimated that it would not escape the fate of death. Wu Yu saw it with his own eyes, so of course he saw it clearly and knew how quickly this person died. Duo Chinjiao. The little prince and others changed their faces and shouted the man's name, but the charred corpse under their feet clearly showed that Duo Chinjiao was dead. Wu Yu was sweating coldly. In fact, it was a matter of luck. He was also nearby just now. If the electric snake had attacked him, he might have died. How is that possible? Wasn't he just struck by lightning? This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Isn't that just ordinary lightning? All the screams I heard before were like this? How many people have died from just now to now? This is a dead person, rather than being forced to leave the Taku Immortal Road. The concept is completely different. Looking at the charred corpse at their feet, even the little prince was in shock. It seemed that they were completely unprepared to face death. However, one thing is true, this place is probably scarier than the previous mausoleum, because the number of deaths is estimated to have exceeded that of the mausoleum. When many people see someone dying around them, they will probably be frightened and leave the Taku Immortal Road immediately. The number of people staying on Taku Immortal Road is decreasing rapidly. What was that just now? Wu Yu looked around cautiously to prevent the electric snake from coming again. There are probably many such deadly things on this mountain peak. Minglong said lazily, a kind of god of all things loves to be parasitic on this world-destroying lightning array, or it was born from this lightning array. Its name is electricity-eating snake. This kind of electricity-eating snake, the snake can use the power of the lightning circle to come and go without a trace. Once it is drilled into the body, no matter how strong it is, it cannot suppress it and will die instantly. There is no other way but to dodge at a faster speed. Escape from the pursuit of the electric snake. Hearing what Minglong meant, he would probably die if he were drilled into his body. This is no joke. The people around the little prince heard screams from other places at this time. One of the girls turned pale and said, "Little prince, there must be a lot of lightning like this on this mountain peak." Zhao Chenjiao is already dead, and we definitely can't hide from it. It's better to go and leave the Taku Immortal Road. The Taku Immortal Talisman doesn't work now. Life and death are not up to you. There is no need to stay here and wait for death. We still have a great future. Yes, many people have died here. I guess other people will leave immediately when they see this scene. Taku Immortal Road is just here to try their luck, there is no need to lose their lives. Everyone was frightened. As long as the little prince allows it, they will probably leave at any time. At this time, they were also nervously paying attention to their surroundings. Occasionally, you can still hear the screams of death coming from a distance. Wu Yu, what do you think? The young prince suddenly asked Wu Yu. Wu Yu knew what he meant. In fact, the little prince was also frightened. He didn't seem very courageous, but his purpose was to let Wu Yu go out together and return to the ancient Yanhuan kingdom. Wu Yu knew his plan and said, "Wealth is sought in danger. Is this danger of death frightening everyone? The treasure of genius is right in front of you. You can see it when you look up. They are all here. Wouldn't it be a joke if you still back down? Anyway, I don't want to leave, I want to go up and have a look. If you are timid, you can leave first. At least, God will not give treasures to people who don't even dare to take risks." The little prince looked gloomy, gritted his teeth, and said, "No one is allowed to leave, just be careful. There is no need to pursue speed. Slow down and be cautious." The others were very depressed and looked at Wu Yu fiercely, but they were still controlled by the little prince, so they bit the bullet and followed the little prince up. Like them, there were many people who wanted to go to the highest point to see the treasure, so when they moved forward, they could still hear screams along the way. Every time there is a scream, it basically means that another genius has died in this ancient immortal road. Wu Yu's side was not attacked for the time being. But he estimated that being noticed by the electric-eating snake was inevitable, so he was more cautious than anyone else, with his piercing eyes always paying attention to the lightning above. In fact, when he was concentrating on it, the electric-eating snake was walking in the lightning network, hibernating. He can see it. It is difficult for others to see clearly. As he walked, he took a closer look and saw that there were more than a dozen electricity-eating snakes swimming above his head in front of him, glaring at the little prince and others passing by below. Wu Yu obviously saw it, but sorry, he wouldn't say it. He was already prepared. Just as everyone was passing by, there was a whistling sound above their heads, and the little prince and the others also saw it. "Hide quickly!" With a roar, everyone started to speed up and fled around. At this time, no one could care about others. Once the speed slowed down and saw the electric-eating snake approaching, everyone would choose to leave the Taku Immortal Road directly. Wu Yu directly used the laws of heaven and earth to change his body to the minimum, and then launched the divine movement technique. Not only did he widen the gap between him and the electric snake, he also disappeared in an instant, so that the young prince and others could no longer find him. Escape successfully. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 644. In addition to the speed of the magic of heaven and earth and the magic of magic, the electric snake is far behind. Besides, even the electric snake would be confused if he suddenly saw that the person he was chasing suddenly became the size of his calf. Not only was it small, but it was also terrifyingly fast, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Wu Yu flew towards the top of the mountain at high speed. Without the young prince and the others to restrain him, his speed increased by at least 10 times. At this speed, he is estimated to be the fastest among so many people to reach the peak. As for the young prince and the others, whether they escaped from the pursuit of the electric-eating snake, or whether a few of them took advantage of the chaos and left the Taku Immortal Road, it had nothing to do with him. Wu Yu took advantage of the chaos and left. When the young prince and others questioned him later, he could also blame the electric snake. However, Wu Yu estimated that this group of people did not have the courage and ambition of the emperor, and they would have been frightened by this turmoil. It's so similar to Qingtian Shushan. After breaking away from them, Wu Yu directly launched his high speed and used his piercing eyes to watch for any movement around him. With such rapid speed, even if he passed by other people, no one might be able to detect his presence. After all, his current body is so small that even the electric snake might not notice him. However, he still had to worry that at such a high speed, he would accidentally enter some magic circle and be killed directly. Therefore, he actually held all the ancient immortal talismans of Dongsheng Shenzhou in his hands. Anyway, I have gained enough from it. The floating tower and the 10,000 dragon stick are all top-notch, and no one else has such gains. Along the way, there seemed to be no other threats except for the lightning bolts scurrying around and the killer electric-eating snakes hiding in the dark. In a blink of an eye, he was halfway up the mountain. It was hard to hear any screams at this time, because he had already left the others far behind. This place is somewhat similar to the Xianjian domain. Along the way, he also paid attention to the relationship between this place and Qingtianshu Mountain. Many rocks do have similarities. Of course, this is definitely not Qingtianshushan. He continued to advance rapidly, his small body shuttled upwards in the stone forest, faster than the speed of lightning. Wu Yu. Suddenly, someone called out to him from the side. At such a high speed, it was really impressive that someone could notice his existence. In fact, Wu Yu also noticed this person when he passed by, but he didn't expect that the other person would notice him. Whoosh! The man was also very fast. When he called Wu Yu and made Wu Yu hesitate a little, he suddenly stopped in front of Wu Yu. This is a young man wearing a black robe. Under the black robe is pale skin, with loose black hair, and his eyes are deep scarlet. What is revealed in these eyes is quite terrifying. It is a deterrent. It is surrounded by black mist and has a ghostly aura. Under the black robe, there is no wind and the sound of ghosts crying and howling is often heard. It always feels like there are endless evil ghosts hiding in it. It's definitely a ghost cultivator. The blood-colored lines on his black robe resembled a flower, so bright red and delicate that it looked like it was painted with blood. To be able to reach this height at this time is definitely an extraordinary person. Wu Yu certainly knows who he is, such a shining person. In the Yanhuang ancient territory, there was a country dominated by ghost cultivators. It was similar to the 4 Dongyang Islands, but its scale was much larger than the 4 Dongyang Islands. Wu Yu had also met someone from this ghost cultivator country before, and that person was named Lucy of Stars. This country of ghost cultivators is called the Demon Heaven Dynasty. It has great national power and a large number of talented ghost cultivators. It is a well-known hell on earth in the ancient Yanhuang domain. The man in front of him is the leader of the group of people in the Motion Dynasty. His status is similar to that of Emperor Yu. I heard others call him Prince Feng. This Prince Feng is also a powerful figure in the Motion Dynasty. It is estimated that no one under the age of 50 can match him. He is also one of the few truly strong opponents of the Emperor. Wu Yu, give me the spiritual weapon. When Prince Feng saw Wu Yu, he reached out to intercept him. He and Wu Yu were the only ones here. He was at the 6th level of the soul transformation realm, and there were many ghost cultivators. He took action only when he was sure of his magical means. Really simple and straightforward. Wu Yu waved his hand and said, "If I don't give it, will Prince Feng lead an army to Dongsheng Shenzhou to find me and threaten me with my family after he leaves?" Prince Feng was even more straightforward and said, "I only want to use spiritual tools and don't want to hurt innocent people, but if there is really no other way, I will show you the ability of ghost cultivators like us to hurt innocent people. It will definitely make you regret it. Come into this world." Difficult. Before that, Wu Yu heard Xiao Yili's first threat, and later he killed Xiao Yili. This shows that in his heart, this kind of threat is the most intolerable to him. He comes from Dongsheng divine continent. In order to expose the heaven-devouring demon ancestor, this must be known to everyone. But now, precisely because he comes from Dongsheng divine continent, anyone who comes out can threaten him with anger. This is his reverse scale, why can anyone touch it? This also made Wu Yu angry. It is impossible to have a spiritual weapon. As for your threat, I can only say that no matter what the situation, one day, I will pay you back tenfold, tenfold. It's meaningless to say more here. The journey on the Taku Immortal Road is still going on. Wu Yu is now no match for the proud man of heaven who is at the 6th level of the soul transformation realm, but at the beginning, he was no match for Xiao Ili either. Sometimes, hatred and murderous intent are decided in just a few words. With your background, why should you fight me? Behind me is the largest ghost cultivator dynasty, one of the strongest people in the world, and you are just a mangy dog in a remote area. You are such a big person. Okay, don't you think it's ridiculous to say such ignorant things? Wu Yu, although you and I are face to face now, don't think that you can be equal to me. Your life is 30 years behind that of the little prince of Yanhuang. 3 heavens. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Prince Feng smiled rudely. The spiritual Taoist artifact is not yours to possess. Handing it over can save your life. Otherwise, my ghost cultivator's methods will make you unable to escape pain forever. I'm not just talking. Prince Feng said this, stretched out his palm and approached him step by step. Some hatred and anger are engraved in the heart. Today is the first time we met, the first time we talked, but this kind of humiliation has already touched the reverse scale, and it is definitely the hatred of life and death. However, this still could not shake Wu Yu's sense of proportion. He wrote down what Prince Feng said today and let time pass on what the future will be like. We will see each other again many years later. For a person with a weak status, whatever he says at this time is ridiculous and a cry made out of cowardice. Papa! Suddenly someone applauded. It turned out that there was someone coming from the right. Before that person arrived, the voice arrived first. The voice was very gentle, elegant, and soft, making people feel very comfortable and even intoxicated. Since the demonic dynasty has become the largest ghost cultivating dynasty, you have to ask me, Izumo country, whether I agree or not. Wu Yu soon saw the person speaking. This person was wearing a pure white robe. The robe was actually decorated with pink cherry blossoms. He also had long hair shawl, but unlike Prince Feng, this person had long hair like a waterfall. Neat, black, and shiny. Looking further down, the facial features are also extremely delicate, and a pair of eyes actually have some pink light, which is still a bit dazzling for a man. Therefore, although this person is a man, he is more beautiful and pure than many women. He can even be described as a beauty. His alluring appearance is nothing more than that. The power displayed on his body is as pure as an immortal, with such an aura. Only the purest immortal way, who never kills anyone in his life, can have such a temperament. If he hadn't refuted Prince Feng and thought that the Izumo kingdom could be compared with the demon dynasty, Wu Yu would have never known that he was actually a ghost cultivator. King Gu Yunsi, have you finally admitted that you are a ghost cultivator and that your Izumo country is also a dark world of ghosts and gods? Prince Feng sneered. The young man named King Gu Yunsi shook his head and said, No, I admit that I am a ghost cultivator, but I am a pure and orthodox ghost cultivator. I, Izumo country, cultivate the Dao of ghosts and gods, which is different from yours. There is a big difference in the way of cultivation. Prince Feng smiled and said, Is it just hiding insidiousness and cruelty, also called the Dao of ghosts and gods? People in the Izumo kingdom just like to show off and deceive themselves. In the eyes of real ghost cultivators like us, you guys are so ruthless but cruel. Those who are sanctimonious are worse than those who practice Taoism. The two were obviously enemies, so when they met, they were full of tension. Judging from their tit-for-tat confrontation, a fight would be inevitable if they met at this time. Wu Yu hadn't paid much attention to King Gu Yunzi before, and he was probably a relatively reclusive person. Judging from Prince Feng's fear, he was no longer inferior to Prince Feng. At this point, King Gu Yunzi was probably too lazy to say more. He pointed at Wu Yu and said, "I want the Shangling Taoist artifact. Are you determined to steal it from me?" Wu Yu, Izwiun. The country is located in the easternmost part of Yanhuang ancient territory, and it is closest to Dongsheng Shenzhou. You have to think clearly about who is more threatening. Another person who ignored Wu Yu's dignity and even didn't take him seriously at all. Of course, he is also a big shot. You dare to rob me? King Gu Yunzi, it seems that the lesson I taught you 10 years ago is not enough, right? Prince Feng growled, already angry. King Gu Yunzi sneered, 10 years ago, you just relied on underhanded means to win. Do you really think you can defeat me? If you have the guts, fight openly and honestly. They were facing each other. Wu Yu felt that there was no point in staying here. He was still in the smallest state of Fa Tian Xiang Di. Seeing that they only paid attention to each other, he slipped away with a whoosh and headed towards the peak. Staying here is a waste of time. Don't leave. The two of them gave up the fight and gave chase. Of course, they couldn't catch up with Wu Yu. Please help me click on GG when checking WeChat. Every day, the kitten pushes interesting things. Please remember to click. Think of it as support for the crazy people. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 645. When Wu Yu was in Qingtian Shushan, he could only reach the halfway point. The Shushan immortal realm on the top of the mountain was once his dream, but because of Nangong Wei, he failed to realize this dream. On this strange Thunder Mountain, the place from the halfway point upwards was very unfamiliar to him. With his speed, he should be the first to go, and all the geniuses from the entire Yama world were left behind. Looking back, there were basically no people, only some unwilling and still chasing him. The higher you go, the more purple thunder there is, and even the number of electric snakes is increasing. Now there are dense thunders above his head, and the electric snakes are staring at him, mixed with the thunder, and will rush towards Wu Yu as soon as they get the chance. There are more thunders flowing in the rocks and soil on the ground and in the air. Looking up, it is very close to the top of the mountain. Wu Yu had long understood that the peak of Qingtian Shushan mountain could not reach the heavenly palace in the sky, and the peak here was the same. However, the palace on the peak, which was covered by lightning, was magnificent and had the feeling of a fairy palace. It could be vaguely seen that the palaces seemed to be divided into 4 groups, distributed on the 4 highest peaks on the peak. They were all the highest places. Here, Wu Yu could smell the fragrance of the Immortals. This fragrance was so strong that it swept the entire mountain. It could only be said that there must be too many Immortals. Is there an Immortal in the palace? He became more and more curious and went up carefully. Although the speed slowed down, it was still impossible for others to catch up with him. He looked down now and basically could not see any human figures. Before, Prince Feng and King Gu Yunzi were still chasing him, but now they were gone. However, Wu Yu remembered the threats of these two people thoroughly. This matter can only be said, it is not over. The higher he went, the clearer it became. At the highest point of this giant peak, there were not only 4 highest peaks, but more than 7 in total. Among them, there was a peak in the center that was the highest, piercing straight into the sky. It was the highest peak of this giant peak. There were 6 sharp peaks around, extending from the top of this giant peak, looking like 7 swords inserted on the top. Among them, only 4 peaks had palaces on them, and 3 peaks were bare and pitch black. However, these 7 highest peaks, without exception, were all covered with thunder and lightning, completely entangled by lightning. One could only walk to the foot of the mountain and climb up, but could not fly directly to the top of the peak. Wu Yu took a look at the 4 peaks with palaces, and he went to the center of the 4 peaks. At this point, he could choose which peak to climb. Peak of the peak. Like 7 giant thunder swords. Now, he has reached the top of the giant peak. Through the dense lightning, he can vaguely see the palaces. Although they are magnificent, numerous, and intact, they still have traces of time. Very magnificent and grand. Coming here, the fragrance of the immortals is more intense. As long as mortals smell the fragrance of these immortals, they can prolong their lives. A magical place, incredible, rare in the world. The ancient immortal road is really a place where anything can appear in the legend. He moved forward quickly on the top of the peak and dodged many chasing electric snakes. With so many electric snakes, there must not be many people who can come here. Wu Yu approached the peaks of these peaks. Suddenly, his fiery eyes penetrated the lightning net and saw that the 7 peaks actually had steps leading to the top. Among them, there are 4 peaks with palaces. The steps are pure white and very bright. It can be clearly seen that there are few lightnings around these steps. If you go up from these steps, you should be able to reach the palace on the top of the peak soon. In fact, the lightning and thunder around the 7 peaks were very low, almost touching the ground. When Wu Yu came here, he could see clearly that only these steps could reach those palaces. The lower edge of the steps of the 4 palaces extended to the center point of the 7 peaks on the top of the peak. Obviously, he could choose to climb any of the 4 peaks from there. Without further ado, Wu Yu sped up and flew towards the center point. The closer he got, he found that on this desolate black mountain, on the top of the peak, there was a white jade platform with a diameter of about hundreds of feet. It was like a square, a platform, shining with crystal and gentle light. The white jade was flawless and very quiet. On the white jade platform, there was no lightning around, let alone electric snakes. It seemed to be the only safe place. The most important thing is that the lower edge of the steps of the 4 peaks connected to the southeast, northwest, and northeast of the white jade platform. The ancient immortal road is very strange, but it also has rules and laws. For example, Wu Yu got the floating life tower because he broke the rules. Obviously, if you want to explore the 4 palaces in this Thunder Mountain, you must go up to the white jade platform. You have to go up from here, from the steps. Maybe there will be other tests along the way. However, Wu Yu is not afraid of the electric snake. He has obtained a lot of treasures now. At worst, he can just crush the ancient fairy talisman and go back. He has been away from home for a long time, especially in the floating life tower. He has spent a lot of time and he misses it a little. Therefore, when he came to the white jade platform, he rushed up without saying a word. It seemed that he was not hindered by anything. He easily stood on the white jade platform. This seemed to be the only pure land in the entire Thunder Giant Peak. There was no raging lightning at all. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. He flew up slightly and looked around. First he saw a few large characters carved in the center of the white jade platform, which read, Wangxiantai. Wangxiantai must be the name of this white jade platform. At this time, Wu Yu was depressed. He had never been to the highest Xuanhuan immortal realm, so he had no idea what was going on up there. There were many magical formations in Xuanhuan that obscured his sight. However, he vaguely heard that there was also an immortal watching platform on top, which was the Xuanhuan Sword Immortal. Where do we look up at the heavenly palace? Wangxiantai, Wangxiantai. He looked around confusedly, feeling a little depressed. Could it be that this place really had something to do with Qingtian Xuanhuan Mountain? However, this is the Teiku Immortal Road. Sure enough, the wonders of the Teiku Immortal Road are beyond comprehension. One more thing, there are 7 peaks here. There are usually 7 immortals in Shu Mountain. I once heard that the 7 Immortals in Shu Mountain each have the highest peak. So, is it really possible that this mountain peak is exactly the same as Qingtian Shu Mountain? He just felt that it was strange. However, he could not decipher this mystery, so he could only keep this wonder in his heart. He immediately noticed the starting point of the stairs to the 4 peaks. These 4 peaks could be climbed from all 4 directions of Wangxiantai. In fact, the steps of the 7 peaks are all connected here, but the steps of the other 3 peaks are made of rocks, which look a bit shabby and cannot be compared with the 4 white jade steps. The 3 peaks were also dark and bare, with nothing on them. Wu Yu originally wanted to climb these 4 peaks quickly, but he immediately encountered another problem. It turned out that at the starting point of these 4 steps, about 100 steps ahead, there were actually piles of electricity-eating snakes, numbering in the thousands. Those electricity-eating snakes, they looked at each other with a warning in their eyes, but they did not attack Wu Yu. They seemed to be reminding Wu Yu not to get close to them, otherwise they would attack. There are no electric snakes on the other 3 steps, but there is nothing on the peak. The steps are the only way to go up, but there are so many electric snakes piled up, who can go up? This gave Wu Yu a headache. He knew very well that if he wanted to challenge the electricity-eating snakes on the 4 steps, he would basically have to pay the price with his life, at least half of his life. This made him hesitate a little. The electric snake was still very scary. If he fought for his life here, it wouldn't be worth it if he really died. As for the other 3 steps, although there seemed to be nothing on the mountain peak, Wu Yu still put some thought into it. Other people who come here will definitely not be able to climb these 4 peaks. In that case, why don't I take advantage of this time to go up to these 3 peaks and have a look? Thinking of this, he just did what he said, running as fast as he could, and suddenly rushed towards one of the steps. Seeing that he was about to step on the steps, Wu Yu suddenly felt a sense of crisis. After getting closer, he suddenly realized that although there are no electric snakes on the steps of the 3 mountain peaks, there is an invisible barrier. It was like he almost hit a wall. Stopped quickly. He took out the vast sea Tyrannosaurus pillar, stopped on the steps, and smashed it forward with a stick. Sure enough, he hit an invisible barrier. Boom! The vast sea Tyrannosaurus column was shaken away. What Wu Yu endured was a huge counter-shock force. This force made him escape from the vast sea Tyrannosaurus column. Even with his physical body, his arms were numb at this moment. This made him realize that he was completely unable to break through this barrier. But, this is not a terrible thing. The scary thing is that when he hit the barrier showed its true scale in just a moment. This invisible barrier was like a lake. Wu Yu struck one spot, and the entire barrier began to ripple. When the ripples rippled, Wu Yu could clearly see how big the lake was. The result is that the entire Wangxiantai is actually completely covered by a hemispherical barrier. Wangxiantai was sealed to death. The only place without barriers is the steps leading to the 4 peaks with palaces. They are covered with electric snakes, and there are no barriers there. In other words, there is a magic circle here. The magic circle forms a barrier. You can only enter, but not get out. After entering, you can only rush past the electric snake and go up. There is no other way out. Wu Yu immediately realized the trouble. However, there is no way. With his level, it is difficult to know that this place can only be entered and not exited before boarding the Wangxian Terrace. He tested it in any direction, and even used spiritual weapons to bombard it. The barrier of this magic circle was really an iron wall. No matter how hard he used it, there was no intention of loosening at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 646. The ancient immortal road is like this. There are places where people are not allowed to go, and there are some restrictive arrays. At the level of Wu Yu and his people, they can't break it even if they use all their skills. For example, in the mausoleum, the array that prohibits the purple mansion energy will suppress anyone. The invisible barrier array on the Wangxian terrace is also like this. You don't even know where the array is, but it really exists. You can come in easily and casually, but it's impossible to leave. Either you are trapped here and can't move a step, or you challenge the steps full of electric snakes. Of course, there should be another choice, that is, to use the ancient immortal talisman to leave here. That's why Wu Yu is not too anxious. At worst, he can just leave. The purple mansion energy is not prohibited here, so the ancient immortal talisman can be used. The steps of the 3 peaks are even more closed, and there is no possibility of going up at all. As for the 4 peaks with palaces, the challenge is too great, and more than 80% of them will lose their lives. Wu Yu feels that there is no need to take risks. As for using the ancient fairy talisman to leave, that is the last step, there is no need to rush. So he was relieved. Anyway, he could not get anything, and it was difficult for others to gain anything. He knew the others. With so many electric snakes, they would not dare to rush up. As long as one electric snake got into the body, it would be very troublesome. Those electric snakes kept wandering anxiously and staring at each other, which was really scary. Wu Yu waited here to see if there would be any changes. He was thinking, when others come, should I remind them that they can get in but not get out? If I remind them, I may be the only one left here. They may have other ways, and I can only wait here. If I don't remind them, they come up. In this narrow space, it is still very troublesome, especially for the little prince and other people. After all, they covet my upper spiritual weapon. Choice, a bit of a dilemma. However, Wu Yu soon found that thinking more was actually useless. Because, when they stood outside the immortal watching platform, they seemed to be unable to see Wu Yu, nor the electric snakes on the 4 steps. Wu Yu remembered that when he came up, he did not see the steps of the 4 peaks, but there were so many electric snakes. The fastest ones were Prince Feng and King Gu Yunci. They came to chase Wu Yu. Just when they arrived, they saw the immortal watching platform and the white jade steps leading to the top of the peak. They probably forgot about Wu Yu. Before they came up, Wu Yu stood in front of them and said, "You two are really slow. I have been waiting here for a long time." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Yu found something wrong. They were not looking at him, and they couldn't even hear what he said. The 2 of them were alert to each other, and then they climbed onto the immortal watching platform without saying a word. Wu Yu wanted to stop them, but it was too late. When they came up, they saw Wu Yu, and he was right in front of them. The 2 were extremely surprised and asked almost in unison, "Wu Yu, why didn't I see you before I came up?" At such a close distance, it was impossible for them not to see you, so the 2 of them were stunned when they came up. Wu Yu retreated away from them. So far, those who stayed in the Taiguxian road were all powerful and powerful people, not much worse than Emperor Yu. There was no benefit in getting close to them. This Wangxiantai is a place where you can enter but not leave. I just talked to the 2 people outside. You should not be able to see me or hear me. After hearing what Wu Yu said, and seeing the dense electric snakes on the steps of the 4 peaks, they were a little nervous. How is it possible? Can't get out. They just came up and rushed out almost at the same time. The 2 of them hit the barrier directly, shaking the entire barrier. The 2 were also ejected at the same time, fell to the ground, and rolled a few times, which shows how strong the rebound force was. Sure enough, there is an invisible barrier, it should be a magic array. The only 4 gaps are the steps leading to these palaces, but there are too many electric snakes. Prince Feng frowned tightly. King Gu Yunzi stood up, took a few glances, and said lightly, "It seems that this ancient immortal road doesn't want me to get any treasures. With so many electric snakes, whoever rushes up will die. Fortunately, we are trapped here, and those electric snakes don't rush in, otherwise, we will all be trapped." Prince Feng said, "Not rushing in now, but it doesn't mean that they will stay on the steps and not come in, right?" Wu Yu was not sure whether the electric snakes would come in suddenly. If they come in, whoever is inside will probably have to crush the ancient immortal talisman and run for his life. Of course, they can also take the opportunity to rush into the steps. At least for Wu Yu, it might be successful. Don't even think about the treasure. The two of them quickly gave up their desire for the palace on the top of the peak. They simultaneously set their eyes on Wu Yu. Obviously, for them, the closer treasure is actually right next to them, on Wu Yu. If they can get this upper spiritual weapon, they can leave directly. There are not many people now. Both of them think that the other is their only enemy. They are preparing to play a game. Their plan is to force Wu Yu's upper spiritual weapon out first, and then fight for it. But unfortunately, after them, other people soon arrived. Princess Yuyan also noticed the immortal watching platform and rushed up without saying a word. It was only after she came up that she saw the three people above, and she was immediately surprised. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Now that you've arrived. Why didn't I see you just now? Princess Yuking's eyes widened with a look of disbelief on her face. No one answered her yet, but another one came. It was the demon 9-star Snow Chi. He also thought he was the fastest, but when he came up, he saw so many people and asked, "Why didn't I see you just now?" Prince Feng smiled coldly and said, "Obviously, you can't get in here, but you can't get out, and the people inside will not let you remind you not to come in." King Gu Yunzi said, "It's frustrating, there are more and more people fighting for the treasure." Hearing Prince Feng's words, Princess Yuking and the two looked around cautiously. Soon, they all knew about the existence of the electric snake and the invisible barrier, so they fell silent. While they were silent, they also looked at Wu Yu more. A few glances. In this closed place, with no way to go up to the palace, it seems that Wu Yu's spiritual artifact has become the only treasure they can fight for. However, they were also worried that Wu Yu would escape directly, so the four of them surrounded him while thinking of a way. Wu Yu had guessed early on that in such an environment, the palace above was impossible, and he would become the only favorite. "Four of you, please don't embarrass me. The spiritual Taoist artifact has been given to the little prince. This is the truth. No matter how you threaten me now, it's useless. I still want to save my life, so how dare I disobey the little prince's will?" He could only use this delaying tactic. Anyway, the little prince is being chased by the electric snake, and he probably won't be able to get up. Those who can get here are top beings. Are you sure? If you cheat on us, the consequences will be very serious, Juxing Sweji threatened in a deep voice. Wu Yu waved his hand and said, "There is only one spiritual weapon, but there are so many people who want it, and there is nothing I can do about it. At least I am from the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, so of course I cannot take advantage of you." Princess Yuking's face turned cold and she shook her head and said, "Wu Yu, you are so disappointed with me. I defended you before, but you didn't repay me at all." Princess Yuking was pretending to win over her, and Wu Yu couldn't follow her lead. Based on his plot, if he really took refuge in her and went to the Beiming Empire, he would not end well. Just as he was talking about this, what made Wu Yu depressed was that he saw the little prince coming here. He didn't expect this guy to be so tenacious. Although he looked very embarrassed, he still insisted on coming here. When he saw Wang Xiantai, he immediately ran up and appeared in front of everyone. "You!" The little prince was stunned. However, he soon noticed Wu Yu, and suddenly he was furious, saying, "Wu Yu, how dare you take advantage of the chaos to escape? Do you know what will happen if you don't take me seriously? Don't think that you have some ability, just if you can challenge me, in this world of monasticism, you alone are nothing." His appearance would cause trouble for Wu Yu. The electric snake attacked and everyone ran around. "I avoided the threat and didn't see you. This has nothing to do with me," Wu Yu said. At this time, the little prince also noticed the surrounding situation. He quickly came to Wu Yu's side. The people next to him looked at him eagerly. He asked in a deep voice, "What is going on here?" Before he finished speaking, Zhu Xingxiuqi asked, "Little prince, Wu Yu said that the spiritual weapon is in your hand. Is this true?" The little prince's face suddenly changed, and he said angrily, "Fart." He turned around, looked at Wu Yu with an evil expression, and said, "What do you mean by that?" Princess Yuking said, "Okay, everyone, stop pretending. Everyone wants his Shangling Dao artifact. I think we should get the Shangling Dao artifact out first to prevent him from escaping the Teiku Immortal Road with it, and then we can fairness determines the ownership of the Teiku Immortal Road." Okay, Prince Feng and the others agreed quickly. The young prince said, "I object. The spiritual artifact belongs to my Yanhuang ancient kingdom, why should I give it to you? Wu Yu, follow me back to the Yanhuang ancient kingdom." As soon as he finished speaking, other people came one after another. This time several people came in succession, and the number of people on the immortal platform suddenly increased to 10 people. Except for Wu Yu, they are at least better than the young prince. "You can come in here, but can't you get out?" The last person who came was a person at the 4th level of Yuan Shen transformation realm. When he came in, he saw that they were all strong men, so he hurriedly wanted to leave, but was stopped by the barrier. "You all compete for the spiritual weapon first. I am not qualified, so I will take the first step," he thought very broadly. Seeing that he could not leave here and could not gain anything else, he secretly prepared to crush the ancient immortal talisman and leave. The ancient immortal talisman was broken. He closed his eyes and prepared to leave. Suddenly, he seemed to hear a voice. When he opened his eyes, what he saw was Prince Feng, Princess Yuki, and King Guyu Yunsi. Everyone looked at him in shock. He was shocked and said, "Did I crush the talisman? But, it's impossible. He had already prepared it and kept it close to him. How could he be wrong? The only possibility is that the ancient immortal talisman triggered it, but he failed to leave." Everyone suddenly felt an unprecedented horror. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 647. Before this person crushed and activated the ancient fairy talisman, there were a total of 10 people in the Xuanhuan. The ancient fairy talisman was activated, and a flash of light flashed, but the terrifying thing was that this person who should have disappeared in front of everyone was still standing here, staring at everyone. And the barriers around the Xuanhuan were like there was no collision, and ripples were rippling, and the ripples gradually became calm. The man widened his eyes, turned around a few times, looked around in panic, and said in panic, "No. I clearly used the ancient fairy talisman. How could it be?" His ancient fairy talisman was gone, but he was still here. This means that if no one gave him other ancient fairy talismans, he should not be able to get out. That is to say, on this Xuanhuan, the barriers around it can't even use the ancient fairy talisman to take people out. Our ancient fairy talismans can't be used at this time, which means that we are completely trapped here. Princess Yuyan said in a cold voice with a little uneasiness. "How could this happen? How can I get out? Even if I leave this Wangxiantai, I can't leave the ancient immortal road." The man's face suddenly turned pale and he trembled. "Wangzhigzun, stop making noise, we are all trapped here," the little prince frowned. "You are trapped here, but if you leave here, you can leave the ancient immortal road, but I can't," The man called Wang Zhigzun had a terrified face and a crying voice. He was in a state of despair and couldn't help trembling. However, this was all his own business. Now everyone was in trouble, but no one cared about him. From then on, no one came here. It is estimated that the more than 100 people before were forced out of the ancient immortal road by the electric snake, and some lost their lives. Generally, it is unlikely to come to the Wangxiantai unless you reach the 4th level of the Yuanshen realm. In other words, there may be only 10 people on the Wangxiantai left in the entire ancient immortal road. This is the period when the most people left after entering. Wu Yu felt that the electric snake was really terrifying when he came up just now. It is estimated that normal people would run away directly. And among these 10 people, except for him and Wang Zhigzun, the other 8 are all characters who call the wind and rain in the world of Yanfu. They are all super geniuses of the younger generation, and they are on par with Emperor Yu. Of course, Wang Zhigzun is also a genius, but his status is different from the other 8. In addition to Princess Yuxiang, Prince Feng, King Gu Yunci, the little prince, Juxing Suechi, and 8-winged golden peng, there are 2 more people, 1 demon and 1 person, who are also figures who dominate the world in the world of Yanfu. One of the demons is a rare tree demon, and it is also the Emperor Tree. The Emperor Tree clan is the most ancient and terrifying tree demon clan in the ancient domain of Yanhuang. It dominates one side and controls all tree demons, flower demons, and other plant demons. Its power is not inferior to the immortal empires such as the Biming Empire and the Demon Heaven Dynasty. The Emperor Tree, most cultivators do not call it by its name, but by its name reverse light rotating wood. However, outside, just like the 9-star snow chi, people only call it Emperor Tree. The other one is a swordsman, holding a long sword, standing in the distance. His temperament is similar to that of Tianxia Sword Immortal. When he is still, he is as quiet as a mountain. Once he draws his sword, he will be as powerful as thunder and chill the world. It is said that there is a holy land in the ancient Yanhuang domain. It is a very small place, but it is comparable to the power of the whole country, because everyone there cultivates swords, loves swords for life, and has a cold temperament. Many ancestors who cultivated swords and became immortals have appeared in history. The Holy Land of Swords is called Eternal Sword Dao. The most important one in front of him is named Fengji Unqing, who is a person of Eternal Sword Dao. After entering the ancient immortal road, he is also elusive and can hardly be seen. A total of 10 people were trapped on this immortal platform, unable to leave, and even the ancient immortal talisman could not be used. The only way out seemed to be the 4 palaces guarded by the electric snakes. Otherwise, they might have to stay here forever, but the ancient immortal talisman has a time limit. Once a year has passed, it will be forever invalid. At that time, either they will die directly or be trapped in this world without diameter for eternity. Thinking about it, everyone felt terrified. Now, either find a way to break this barrier, or risk your life, Prince Feng said. Breaking the barrier is easier said than done. The formation setting of the ancient immortal road does not leave us the option of breaking it. I think we can only go up, King Gu Yunci sneered. In fact, everyone was thinking hard, only Wang Zhigzun, who had lost the ancient immortal talisman, was crying miserably at this time. He knew that there were not many people in the ancient immortal road now. Even if they broke the barrier, he should stay here forever. Wu Yu, however, had a very ominous premonition. Since the ancient immortal talisman cannot be used, they are not worried about my leaving. It is a time of distress. Perhaps, they will first decide who is the owner of the 10,000 dragon stick. I am in here, I am afraid there is no escape. Before this, everyone knew that he had the upper spirit Dao instrument, but they did not take action, or could only threaten, because they were afraid that Wu Yu would leave directly. This is the most troublesome thing in the ancient immortal road. But the barrier of the immortal watching platform is like a nightmare, and even the ancient immortal talisman cannot leave. Some things cannot be avoided. When they were depressed that they could not get out, they looked around, and finally several people's eyes fell on Wu Yu almost at the same time. They thought of it almost at the same time. This is a good opportunity to snatch the upper spirit Dao instrument. So far, most people have found nothing. If you can grab the spiritual weapon and go out, the harvest will be great. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. For a moment, Princess Yuking, Prince Feng, Juxing Suezi, etc. stared at Wu Yu with unkind expressions. They originally wanted to take action directly, but obviously they knew that others had also thought of it. In order to avoid being besieged first, everyone decided to take action. First I held back. The little prince was also shocked. He quickly stood in front of Wu Yu and said in a deep voice, "The Shangling Taoist artifact belongs to my Yanhuang ancient kingdom. Don't try to steal it. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Either of you, there is no power to compete with the Yanhuang ancient kingdom." Princess Yuking chuckled and said, "Little prince, don't scare us. With this spiritual weapon, you can start a war in the ancient Yanhuang kingdom. You'd better think more about it. This is the Teku Immortal Road. Words can't threaten anyone. Now that the spiritual Dao artifact has not been taken out, it means that it can still choose the person who owns it. Do you want so many of us to listen to you alone?" The little prince was very depressed and gritted his teeth and said, "Don't you guys think about how to get out of this hellish place first?" Prince Feng smiled and said, "This is not a ghost place. After leaving this ghost place, we still have to worry about Wu Yu taking away the spiritual artifact. Since this opportunity is once in a lifetime, how could the dignified spiritual artifact fall into the hands of this unknown person? On hand." King Gu Yunzi also said, "Little prince, if you still want to monopolize it at this time, you are too naive." Although the others didn't say much, except for Wang Zhigzun, they all stood up and surrounded Wu Yu and the young prince. They might be worried that Wu Yu would rush towards the steps of the electric snake, so immediately there were 4 people. People go and intercept these 4 directions. This is Wangxian Terrace where you can't get out. You can't escape from our grasp. Wu Yu Juxing Sueji smiled. Wu Yu admitted that he was in danger because of the sudden change in the environment. Huge trouble. The little prince also knew that it was very troublesome. He said, "There is only one spiritual weapon, but there are 8 of us. How to divide it up? There must be a way." This is indeed a method that can cause conflicts between each other. From what he said, it sounded like Wu Yu and Wang Zhigzun were indeed not taken seriously by these 8 people. Everyone was silent. Princess Yuking had previously tried to win over Wu Yu, but now that Kong Bao was in front of her, she immediately changed her face and said, "We are all people with status, so let's choose a fair and just method that everyone can be convinced of. Whoever gets the treasure depends on his true ability. It happens that there are 8 of us. We will fight in 2s and 4 will be determined. The winner will then fight in 2s and 1 will decide who can win. Whoever wins the final victory will have the spiritual weapon. It is so fair and just, everyone has a chance, and it is not chaotic or hurts our peace. What do you think?" Princess Yuking dared to propose this really fair method. It can only be said that she had great courage. She thought she could defeat 3 people in a row and thought that she was the strongest among the group of people. Of course, everyone in this group of people has such pride. The only one who doesn't have it is the little prince. He knew in his heart that his strength was considered weak among this group of people. 3 ascetics, 3 demons, and 2 ghost cultivators. If not, it will be a melee, and then, because even if you grab the treasure, you can't get out, the melee will continue, and people may even die in the end. In the melee, whoever grabs the treasure will probably be unconvinced by everyone else. That might create an infinite loop. The 8 people thought about it carefully, and Prince Feng was the first to say, "Very good, I like this method, everyone must be convinced." In fact, everyone is usually far away from each other and has a great reputation, but they rarely fight each other. They probably have the idea of a fair fight in their hearts. King Gu Yunzi was his mortal enemy. At this time, Prince Feng looked provocatively, and of course he said, "This method is indeed good to avoid meaningless casualties, but how to decide the opponent?" Princess Yuking said, "There are 8 of us, and more than 5 of us agree to do this. Decide on the method first. As for the opponent, there is always a fair method. This is something that will happen later." Then it was time for others to express their stance. The 2 demons Juxing Xiuji and 8-winged Jinpeng thought about it and thought it was okay. The Emperor Shu also nodded. Finally, Feng Jianqing looked like an arrogant person and a person of eternal swordsmanship. It is impossible to shrink from this kind of challenge. In the end, only the little prince was missing. However, his opinion is no longer important, 7 people have already agreed. In fact, the most crucial person is Wu Yu. But to the 8 of them, it didn't matter at all whether Wu Yu had any ideas, and no one cared. At this moment, Wu Yu was just their prey. Prey, where does the right to speak come from? Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 648. Wang's Higzun, I'll leave it to you to draw lots and fight. Don't use any tricks to fool us. You know the outcome. Princess Yuking's final drawing method also convinced others. If Wang's Higzun wants to continue to stay here, he must be obedient. He is eager to work for these 8 people. Maybe they have other ancient immortal talismans on them. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Or, in fact, he was also eyeing Wu Yu. At this time, he said softly, 8, if I can handle this matter well, can you give me the ancient immortal talisman on his body? There were 9 other people present, including Wu Yu's ancient immortal talisman, and he dared to take it away. The little prince had always been depressed, and he was also sulking at this time. He knew that he didn't have much hope of winning. This evil spirit will also spread to Wu Yu. In response to Wang's Higzun's inquiry, Prince Feng smiled and said, "Be honest, the ancient immortal talisman is yours." Upon hearing this, Wang's Higzun's eyes lit up and he quickly concentrated on this exciting battle. The 8 people in front of me are all famous figures fighting in this Wangxiantai. If this duel were held in the Yanhuang ancient territory, I don't know how much of a sensation it would cause. At this time, Wang's Higzun seemed to have become the only witness. Of course he was excited, but at the same time he also wanted to do his job well and satisfy everyone. Of course, he couldn't please anyone, he could only be fair. If he showed partiality to anyone, he would probably die. Little prince, are you just giving up? Maybe, the spiritual Dao artifact would have been yours, but now, it is unlikely to fall into your hands. Wu Yu knew that he was in trouble, so he said to the little prince. The little prince glared at him fiercely and said, "Now that things have happened, it's you and me who are unlucky. You still dare to use me as a gunman, don't you think you have a long life?" Although he was unwilling and very irritable, he had already given in. The will of the other 7 people was not something he could control. If they don't do what they say, all 7 of them may join forces to kill someone. By then, everyone's hands will be stained with blood. Naturally, no one will dare to tell anyone. By then, he will die without anyone noticing. At this time, they were ready. The first priority was to take out the spiritual Taoist artifact in Wu Yu's hand and hand it over to Wang's Higzun, and then they could decide the outcome. 9 people, including the unwilling but helpless little prince, surrounded Wu Yu. All of them were condescending and their eyes were full of oppression. Especially since they are all at a very high level, with strong souls and powerful magic powers, they are like 8 giant beasts. Even one of them can make it difficult for Wu Yu to breathe, let alone 8. In the entire Jambu world outside, they are all heroes among men. One person's life and death can spread throughout the world. Although they are young, less than 50 years old, when they arrive at Dongsheng Divine Continent, they are number 1 in the world, surpassing the Lord of Yanhuang City and the Holy Lord of Taizhou. Now, Wu Yu has become their only enemy. Prince Feng's bloody eyes were cold, and he said, Wu Yu, if I were you, it would be weird at this time. You can still survive if you hand over the spiritual Taoist artifact, but if you hesitate a little, you will annoy us, ruin our mood, and lose your life. That's not worth it. Princess Yuking also said, take out the spiritual weapon. It shouldn't be something you can possess. You are not qualified yet. Wu Yu, you have to accept your fate. After all, who can know, how can this Wangxiantai be such a place, but why are we all gathered here? God doesn't let you have this treasure, you can't blame us, hurry up. Don't even think about rushing to the 7 peaks. We are guarding the steps, and there are also electric snakes stationed there. Your only way is cut off. We don't have much patience. Besides, you killed the immortal shark, I haven't settled the score with you yet, Juxing Sweji said with a sneer. They did quickly seal off all Wu Yu's escape routes. The key is that each of them is stronger than Wu Yu. Except for Wang's Higzun, Wu Yu is no match for any of them, let alone surrounded by 8 people. In terms of origin, identity, and status, they are far from comparable. However, Wu Yu was certainly not willing to give in. He also spent a lot of hard work to obtain this 10,000 dragon stick, and also spent a lot of energy to conquer it. Among them, there were indeed 4 people who completely blocked Wu Yu's path and prevented Wu Yu from going to the electric snake. As long as Wu Yu makes a slight move, he will probably be greeted by a death blow. While talking, these 8 people, including the young prince, all sacrificed their Taoist weapons one after another. Facing Wu Yu, with the posture of these 8 people, they would definitely kill Wu Yu if they disagreed with each other. Life. Everyone, is there no room for negotiation? For example, don't you take a look at whether this spiritual weapon is suitable. Wu Yu was rarely forced to this extent. Although so far, they have not taken action. However, their actions, eyes, words, and their deep contempt, the feeling that they only regarded Wu Yu as a prey, deeply burned Wu Yu. He has always hated everyone here. The young prince and princess Yuking are no exception. Even though they seemed to be wooing Wu Yu before, in fact, when their interests are really involved, they hate him more than anyone else. For example, Princess Yuking, this fair competition method was proposed by her. In this method, let alone respect, Wu Yu was not regarded as the same thing at all. Of course, this is reality. In terms of strength, Wu Yu is struggling to catch up with them, but in terms of background and power, it is impossible to catch up in his lifetime. That is a matter for our ancestors. Perhaps, Wu Yu's dream is to create a background equal to the power behind them, to create it himself. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. However, for now, it is still very far away. However, that was a dream. He gritted his teeth and remembered everyone's eyes today. One day, he would repay them. But now, with all roads blocked, he is still thinking of a way. Even Minglong said, don't be stubborn now. Give them the spiritual Taoist artifact first and let them decide the winner. Anyway, they are all here and can't get out. Sooner or later they will return to your hands. The most important thing now is to save your life. Don't learn from me. Back then I just didn't know how to adapt and was stubborn, so I lost my life. Wu Yu also thought about giving them the 10,000 dragon stick first, and maybe he would still have a chance. However, he couldn't do it. It was his own Taoist weapon that he had sacrificed and refined. The Wanlong in it recognized Wu Yu as its master at this time. How could you, with such humiliation, throw them away? However, Wu Yu actually overestimated them and their respect for him. In fact, I was also thinking about whether I should just take a step back, as Ming Long said. However, they didn't give them a chance. At this time, Wu Yu just slowed down a little and didn't reply. Among the 8 people, Zhu Xingxiuqi and Prince Feng were the first to take action. Don't waste your time, this loser. If you don't beat him, he won't know what it means to be afraid. The 2 of them took out their Taoist weapons and attacked suddenly. When the others saw this, they were not idle either. They really didn't have the patience to force Wu Yu. This method was simpler and more crude. In this way, Wu Yu originally put the words on his tongue that he was willing to hand over the spiritual weapon, but when he saw them taking action directly, he had to take it back. Instead, there was uncontrollable rage, overwhelming anger. These people don't even give me time to hesitate. Yes, they are condescending and stronger than me. As the saying goes, even if you practice plunder, they are just plundering reasonably. In that case, why not compare with them to see who is more ruthless? It's impossible to get a spiritual weapon. At this time, he roared madly in his heart. He saw that all 8 people took action without exception. They were probably still a little worried that others would take away the spiritual tools first and not follow the rules. Wu Yu remembered their indifferent faces one by one at this moment. Maybe, I haven't been this aggrieved for a long time. But, this is reality. He thought differently from Ming Long, he took another path. Facing 8 powerful men, all of whom were deadly attacks, he had no choice at this time. He hesitated a little and returned to the west immediately. These people all want to kill themselves. Perhaps, they were also a little jealous of Wu Yu's physical talent. They also want to know what other secrets Wu Yu has. Anyway, they killed him. At this fatal moment, Wu Yu was decisive as never before. His eyes were bloody, he remembered all this, and then took out something from the Sumuru bag. It's not the Wanlong stick, a divine weapon, but the floating life tower. As soon as the fusion tower came out, Wu Yu quickly entered it. The next moment, all fatal attacks fell on the fusion tower. The combination of various Taoist and magical powers from them could kill Wu Yu more than 10 times. Bang 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 bang. Those attacks hit the fusion tower and made violent noises. Because everyone was attacking, it was very chaotic. No one could see clearly for a while whether Wu Yu was dismembered or not. Everyone must leave me the ancient immortal talisman. Wang Zhixun was very nervous outside and looked straight at it. Snap! Everyone felt strange and looked back. Their eyes were clear. Wu Yu seemed to be missing. This shocked them. At the same time, a small white tower flew out during their attack, rolled on the ground several times, and fell outside their encirclement. Where's Wu Yu? Are you dead? What kind of Taoist weapon is this? He seems to have gone inside. Impossible. How can ordinary Taoist tools withstand the attack of 8 of us? This small white tower is the spiritual Taoist tool he got. No, his spiritual weapon is a stick. The little prince was very horrified. He remembered a little and exclaimed, "This is a white tower in the sea of clouds." He got this white tower. For a moment, everyone was shocked and frightened. At this moment, before they could recover, a burst of thick black smoke suddenly appeared from the small white tower. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a black puppet with wings. He picked up the fusion tower without saying a word, rushing towards the direction of the electric snake. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 649. This puppet, who is as black as a child, extremely fast, and covered in black flames, is the demon flame god general that Wu Yu just challenged. He has never used the floating life tower. Today, between life and death, these people no longer regard his life as the same thing, so they can only sacrifice this tool. Once he came out of the fusion tower, there was no way back for him. Wu Yu knew very well that he had made the choice to fight to the death, but this was not of his own free will, but was forced by others. As soon as the demonic flame god general came out, he followed Wu Yu's instructions and sprayed out a large amount of black anger while moving, sweeping towards the surprised 9 people. In an instant, half of Wangxian Terrace was swallowed up. Of course, this flame could hardly cause any harm to them. It had more of a role in blocking them and interfering with their sight. The demonic flame god general showed no expression on his face as he rushed to the nearest step. The electric eating snakes in front of him became very agitated when they saw him approaching. They swam, jumped, and grinned, as if as a warning to Wu Yu. However, Wu Yu is now inside the fusion tower, so the only thing the demon flame god general can do is to hug the fusion tower and rush inside instantly. As soon as he rushed, he angered the electric snake. The 8 people behind it were shocked when they saw the puppet making such a move, and they all rushed to catch the demon flame god general. However, demon flame god general moved quickly, 1 step faster, rushed into the surroundings of the electric snake, and walked up the steps. The electric eating snakes were irritable and wreaking havoc, jumping up and down and making sharp, sizzling whistling sounds. They were waiting for this moment. Basically, as soon as the demonic flame god general stepped up the steps, a large number of electricity-eating snakes burrowed directly into his body. There are also those drilling towards the floating life tower. Naturally, they cannot destroy the floating life tower. The demonic flame god general is a dead thing, and it is forged from precious materials, not flesh and blood. Therefore, the effect of the electric-eating snakes does not seem to be as terrifying to monks or demons. When a large number of electricity-eating snakes enter the body, the demonic flame god general's whole body will explode. Shining purple lightning, but still able to move forward rapidly. All this happened in an instant. Don't let him get away. The next moment, Princess Yotong and the others' attacks had entered the range of the electric snake. They also used their own methods to fight for the demon flame god general. However, their attack on the electric snakes was equivalent to poking a hornet's nest. The electric snakes had been staring at them for a long time. Due to certain rules, they could not attack them. But now that they were attacked, the electric snakes suddenly became excited. Most of them gave up on the demon flame god general, and as if to prevent the 9 people outside from entering, they swarmed towards Wang Xiantai, and even entered the distance of more than 10 feet inside Wang Xiantai. Electric-eating snakes are not afraid of many types of attacks. Even Princess Yuking and the others, when encountering a swarm of electric-eating snakes, they can only give up temporarily and dodge quickly. They thought that the electric snake would hunt them down throughout Wang Xiantai. If so, they would not be able to leave here and they would all die here. For a moment, they were frightened and screamed, fleeing in panic, no longer daring to pursue the demon flame god general. However, what made them feel a little relieved was that the electric snake did not leave the steps too far, and only walked forward for more than 10 feet. Then, as if it had received some kind of mission, it quickly returned and blocked the entrance to the steps. The 9 of them saved 1 life, but they were also frightened and sent chills down their spines. Wu Yu, they were sweating coldly as they looked up the steps, and it was even more thrilling. In their sight, most of the electric-eating snakes were still blocking the entrance, wary of them, but there were also some that were all entangled or crawling in. On the body of the demon flame god general. The demon flame god struggled forward, climbed dozens of steps along the road, and was finally torn to pieces by the electric snake. At the last moment, the demon flame god threw the fusion tower upwards, and with the last remaining strength, he threw it up dozens of steps. The position of the fusion tower was already some distance away from Princess Yuking and the others. The electric-eating snakes had nothing to do with the floating life tower, and the floating life tower was not a living creature, so a large number of electric-eating snakes quickly returned to the entrance, leaving the floating life tower alone. However, the 9 people at Wangxiantai clearly saw the torn pieces of the demon flame god flying towards the fusion tower. Although the fragments were very serious, it did not affect the fusion tower from recovering them at all. The 9 people in Fusion Tower and Wangxiantai were separated by the arrogant and violent electricity-eating snakes. They stared at the flesh and blood in front of them. Princess Yuking and the others had nothing to do. They stared at the floating tower with wide eyes. The little prince gritted his teeth and said, "Wu Yu. He must have got other things besides the spiritual Taoist artifact. For example, this tower. This is definitely the small tower that appeared on the Sea of Clouds. How could something like that happen? It will fall into his hands." Looking at the small white tower, he naturally knew that it was definitely not a mortal thing. "When did he get this pagoda, and you didn't know it? He was following you before, little prince. This is your fault. So many treasures are dazzling in front of your eyes, and you don't feel anything at all," Prince Feng said. "Sometimes I am still in the mood to laugh at others." Princess Yuking frowned, her voice was cold, and she said, "Maybe, he has obtained 2 spiritual tools, but now, he has entered this small tower and is separated from us by the electricity-eating snake. This shows that no matter how many spiritual tools they have, there is nothing they can do." The group of electric-eating snakes were really rough, and they weren't sure. Who among us tried to kill him first? If he didn't kill him, he probably wouldn't be able to use this pagoda to escape. I don't know who it is, haha. They even shirk responsibility from each other. Wang Zhixun was also stunned. He could only watch the ancient immortal talisman fly away. As for the decisive battle between the 8 of them, it has no meaning. Just when they were all harboring evil intentions, confused, and very angry, the Tower of Floating Life moved, and Wu Yu came out, holding the Tower of Floating Life and standing on the white jade steps, which was considered the lower part of the steps. The demon flame god general can bring himself here, which is already very good. After he appeared, the electric snake was still guarding the entrance and did not pursue him. Wu Yuban decided to engage in guerrilla warfare with the electric-eating snake. When the electric-eating snake came, he would hide inside. When the electric-eating snake returned, he would hold the fusion tower up. However, since the electric-eating snake did not chase him upward, it at least meant that he had passed the test of the electric-eating snake. He could walk up here with confidence, and the electric-eating snake would not chase him again. This is a great thing. Out of danger. Of course, this step was a little different from Wangxiantai. Wu Yu did not move for the moment. He looked at the people below who were gnashing their teeth at him. These people just now were all vying to kill him. This is no longer Wangxiantai. Logically speaking, ancient immortal talismans are useful. Of course, Wu Yu didn't need to test. He still wanted to go up and see those palaces and didn't want to leave yet. Now that we have risked our lives, there is no need to be afraid of them. Perhaps they were most afraid of Wu Yu using the ancient immortal talisman to leave at this time. The 9-star Snow Chi said, "Wu Yu, assuming you are capable, you'd better be honest and don't rush back to Dongsheng Shenzhou. You have to, now that both of your important treasures have been exposed, even if you return to Dongsheng Divine Continent, you can't keep it. I, the demon from the 9-star sea, will be the first to destroy you, Dongsheng Divine Continent, and it will be useless for you to hide wherever you go. You can't leave. If you leave, all your relatives and friends will be dead. In the world of Jambu, no matter where you hide, I, the demonic emperor, will be able to find you even if I dig 3 feet into the ground." Seeing so many people threatening her, Princess Yuking looked kindly and said, "We were wrong just now. We shouldn't have ignored your life. In fact, we were just confused. Wu Yu, you put this tower and give us the stick, and we won't trouble you anymore. Now that you are lucky enough to go there, you can go up and explore those palaces. There may be more important treasures. This is the best advice I can give you. You don't need to risk it. If you risk your life and hold things that don't belong to you, you will harm everyone who loves you, right? Throw the things away and you will be a friend to any of us. Princess Yuking used this method of overcoming strength with softness, and others also followed suit. They were still afraid that Wu Yu would just go back. After all, it would be easy to implicate people related to Wu Yu if they chased him out, but to find Wu Yu himself, once it would still be difficult for Wu Yu to choose to flee the world. After he leaves, there will be more people competing. That's right, we were too impulsive just now. We apologize to you. Just throw these two treasures down and we will solve it ourselves. We will have nothing to do with you from now on. I am also willing to be your friend, King Gu Yunsi said hurriedly. Wu Yu, use the ancient immortal talisman of the Yanhuang ancient kingdom. After you go out, find the prince of the eastern region and tell him everything that happened here. He will protect the Dongsheng divine continent. The little prince suddenly made a different voice. Suddenly, everyone looked at the little prince with hatred and even murderous intentions. This scared the little prince back a few steps and he did not dare to say anything anymore. Wu Yu had really heard enough of their self-righteous words. After reaching the extreme, many things are actually unnecessary, such as respect and tolerance. After the little prince finished speaking, Wu Yu finally responded to them. He faced Princess Yuking, the only woman here, and asked with a smile, "You just said you need that stick." Seeing him relent, Princess Yuking was pleasantly surprised. She nodded quickly and said, "Yes, you know what that is." Oh, Wu Yu nodded, stretched out his hand to point to his crotch, and said, "Is it this one?" For a moment, there was silence. Princess Yuking's face was red, angry, and furious. If Wu Yu hadn't been behind the electric snake, she would have killed someone. Go to hell. After Wu Yu finished speaking, his face turned gloomy, he put away the fusion tower, turned around and walked up. Everyone was left looking at each other in shock. Of course they didn't expect that Wu Yu would dare to be rude to them. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 650. Wu Yu went up with determination in every step. No matter what threats or curses came from behind, he never looked back. The 8 of them naturally said unpleasant things, either threatening Dongsheng Shenzhou, or saying that their ghost cultivators had some means to make Wu Yu regret coming to this world. Yes, they have this ability. Each and every one of them is the pride of heaven. There are majestic forces behind them. So, they bared their teeth and claws. However, when Wu Yu got tired of hearing these words, when Wu Yu was forced to a dead end and had no chance of turning back, they no longer made him angry or worried. It's nothing more than death. It's better to fight to the end and fight to the death. No matter how many forces are behind them, no matter how many there are. Climb all the way up, without looking back or saying a word, only with firm steps and eyes, as well as an unyielding state of mind that is dedicated to the Tao. Every step of this is a Tao transformation for Wu Yu. Minglong said, "Silly thing, in life, there are inevitably some helpless things. I advised you to be patient before, but now you have reached this point. They are unkind and unjust. Only by being more cruel and rude can you resolve this crisis. I know, it's just a waste of time here. As long as they don't get out of Sendai, I will be able to deal with them one day. Even if I can get out, even if there are so many threats, the road is still long, and the outcome is not certain." Wu Yu spoke clearly and firmly in every word he said. Now, he is not a match for any of them. They are all the top geniuses in the entire Yanfu world. It is not easy for Wu Yu to reach this point. However, he just wanted to fight. Why don't I have the qualification to possess a spiritual weapon? Who are they to decide whether they can have it? Left and right is nothing more than strength. With everything in this world, if your strength is in place, there will be no difficulty that cannot be solved. Therefore, at this moment, he was moving up step by step, speeding up faster and faster. Those abuses and threats were directly left behind by him. Princess Yuking and the others threatened Wu Yu, but they had no choice but to stand in Wu Yu's current position. Look down and see Sendai, it's only the size of an egg. Perhaps the time on the Taku Immortal Road was still long, and Wu Yu had already arrived at the foot of those palaces, so he simply forgot about them. The white jade steps extend to the top of the mountain. They have disappeared since the first palace appeared. Wu Yu walked into the palace complex covered by dense purple thunder. There are thousands of palaces in front of us, magnificent and row upon row. These ancient buildings have a wonderful and mysterious appearance under the shining of thunder and lightning in the sky. With so many palaces, Wu Yu was naturally curious as to what kind of secrets these palaces built on the top of this thundering giant peak, guarded by so many electric-eating snakes, held. He walked towards the first palace. Bright and simple gold bricks, pillars carved with complex patterns, and lavender-glazed tiles constitute this majestic palace. Wu Yu walked towards the door of this palace that seemed to be completely closed. It was a dark golden door that looked like very heavy. Should I not be able to get in? Seeing this door, Wu Yu felt a little depressed. Entering the Taku Immortal Road, he saw several doors, all of which were closed at first. Wu Yu tried his best and only entered the small door inside the Fusion Tower. When he exerted enough strength to push inside, he found that the golden door was surprisingly heavy. It was not that it was heavy itself, but that there must be a magic circle on the golden door that came from ancient times but was still in operation. That was the power of the magic circle, which restricted Wu Yu. As a result, Wu Yu could only push it a little. At most, there was a gap less than a finger wide, but he couldn't get in at all. He walked around, but there was not a single window in this palace. Except for the gate, everything is closed. In this case, we can only try to destroy it. He used the 10,000 dragon stick and basically used the strongest force to hit the door or any place he thought might be weak, and he tried his best to smash it upward. Boom boom boom. The sound and movement were loud, but this kind of violent attack couldn't even break the bronze door of the mausoleum, let alone the palace. Wu Yu had no way to deal with the palace. It doesn't matter. There are thousands of palaces on this mountain. One of them must be open, right? His mentality is still very good. At this time, I was not in a hurry to leave, but looked inside through the gap. Anyway, the people below were trapped in Wangxiantai, they didn't dare to attack the electric snake, and they couldn't leave. Wu Yu still had time and opportunity. He used his fiery eyes and squinted his eyes to look inside the palace through the crack in the door. He could indeed see something. First of all, the palace was a little dark. He could vaguely see candles burning on the surrounding walls. There were not many candles. The color seems to be white. Seeing these candles, Wu Yu thought of black candles. However, the two candles were of different styles. The white candle had been burning for who knows how long. From this, it can be seen that these palaces are definitely not simple. He looked carefully again. What's there? Tell me quickly. Minglong was the most curious and jumped up and down. Before Wu Yu could say anything, she suddenly smiled and said, I see, there are a lot of bookshelves and a lot of scrolls, right? Wu Yu was startled. This was indeed what he saw. It seemed to be a bookshelf with many scrolls placed inside. How do you know? Minglong pursed his lips, stretched out his little finger, and pointed to the distance. There was an empty space in the distance. There was a plaque on the empty space, inserted diagonally into the ground. The plaque was black with a golden border, and there were 4 golden characters in the center. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. That is, Tao follows nature. Tao follows nature. Wu Yu quickly came to the front of the plaque. It has been a long time. The plaque looks like wood, but it can be preserved for such a long time. Wu Yu tried to pinch it a few times, but he couldn't move it. Tao follows nature, what does it mean, and what does it have to do with the scroll you know inside? Wu Yu asked curiously. He turned around the plaque. Except for the special material of the plaque, there is nothing special about it for the time being. It seems to have been smashed here from a high place. Ming Long shook his head and said proudly, "Hey, you have followed me for so long, how come you haven't learned any of my intelligence? Since you asked, I will tell you without hesitation to broaden your horizons. We are below, and there are 4 peaks above. You felt the smell of immortals before, but now have you discovered that you didn't leave from here? Wu Yu forgot about the immortals. After listening to her, it turned out that this was already the top of the mountain, but there was no smell of immortals. The immortals are on another peak, Ming Long said firmly. Why? Because the palaces on these 4 peaks may have belonged to a sect many years ago. The 4 peaks have different things. One of them may be full of immortals, and the one under your feet should be the place where the Taoism is stored, so the plaque of Taoism appears. So this is what she guessed, but it makes sense. In other words, the thousands of palaces here may store various Taoist arts. Moreover, the Taoist arts passed down by such a strange sect must be extraordinary, and they may all be valuable treasures. There is no time to lose. Wu Yu was also worried that the people below would come up. Now was the time to take advantage and find the harvest. He immediately prepared to go to other palaces. Put away this plaque and take everything you can take away, Ming Long warned. She even wanted this plaque. Sure enough, she still couldn't change her miserly nature. Wu Yu put the plaque into the sumuru bag and succeeded easily. Then, under the dense purple thunder, he flew towards the second palace. The higher he went, the more palaces there were. He was still at the bottom of the palace group. The higher he went, the more magnificent it was. Soon, he arrived at the second palace. Unlucky, the door was also closed. Looking inside through the narrow crack of the door, it was indeed a Taoist scroll. It looked well preserved. I don't know what level of Taoist art it was. Wu Yu still tried to attack violently or crack the magic circle, but it was no use, so he immediately went to the third palace. Basically, they were all closed. Of course, this was normal. These palaces were complete and there was no sign of damage, so it was normal that the magic circle still existed. After all, this was the ancient immortal road. Wu Yu did not give up. He searched each palace one by one, checking what was inside each one and whether it was possible to get in. This did not take him much time, after all, the speed was very fast. Later, there were palaces all around him. He directly started at the highest speed, pushed the doors whenever he saw them, and looked for windows or other gaps. He was very busy. Later, he remembered that he had clones, which made it even more convenient. He directly split clones and soon spread them all over the mountain. Although there was a gap between the clones and his own strength, it was generally impossible for the clones to push, and it was unlikely for his original body to push. Unless there was a half-open door or a door that was not closed at all. It took Wu Yu half a day to carefully check, search, and use all the clones. The most important thing about this half day is that I am tired, because I feel that all the treasures and precious Taoist arts are right in front of me, but the frustrating thing is that there is no way. It feels the same as being one step away from the spiritual Taoist artifact on the grassland. He even took out a black candle to try, but it didn't work. It didn't seem to be something from the same place. The grassland and this mountain have nothing to do with each other. A whole mountain, thousands of palaces, all well preserved, except for the useless plaque at the beginning. I didn't find any treasure. Wu Yu continued to search, not leaving any corner, but still nothing. After all, he risked his life to come up, and he didn't get anything, which was still a bit depressing. How is it possible? None of them are open, they are all closed. Wu Yu still didn't give up, and continued to try, and his clones were all over the top of the mountain. A day passed. He still didn't enter any palace. However, one of his clones found a magical place.